A pregnancy announcement. That's what this is supposed to be. A royal baby. A growing family. A moment of joy in a palace that desperately needs one. But in the House of Windsor right now, nothing is just what it appears to be. Because the woman who just announced her pregnancy is the daughter of a disgraced prince. A man stripped of his titles. Removed from his home. Arrested. And the palace, the very institution that cast her father out, just released the announcement themselves. They didn't have to do that. They chose to. And in the world of royal politics, every choice is a message. This one carries more weight than anyone in the mainstream press is willing to say out loud. Let's go back. Princess Eugenie, daughter of Prince Andrew, formerly HRH, now stripped of every royal designation the institution can legally remove. She is not a working royal. She doesn't represent the crown at official engagements. She doesn't appear on the publicly funded list of senior royals. In every formal sense, she is a private citizen with a royal title. Her father, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is something else entirely. Arrested. Accused of misconduct in public office. Removed from Royal Lodge. His allowance cut. His titles gone. The palace didn't just distance themselves from Andrew. They erased him. So explain this. Why did Buckingham Palace, the official voice of the British monarchy, just issue a formal announcement on behalf of his daughter? Why is King Charles's name on a press release celebrating a pregnancy in the House of York? One line. Just 11 words. His Majesty the King has been informed and is delighted with the news. Informed. And delighted. 11 words. And every single one of them is deliberate. Not everyone is delighted. Richard Eden has covered this royal family for years. As diary editor of the Daily Mail, he met Beatrice and Eugenie at events. Wrote about them with sympathy. Defended them publicly when others questioned their family connections. He said, and he meant it, that it was fundamentally unfair to blame daughters for the sins of their father. Then he read the Epstein files. 3 million documents. Released to the public. And the more he read, the more his sympathy collapsed. He wrote a piece earlier this year. The headline said everything. How Princess Beatrice betrayed me. This is a man who knew her personally. Who defended her. Who gave her the benefit of the doubt for years. And now he's calling it betrayal. November 2019. Prince Andrew sits down with BBC journalist Emily Maitlis for what becomes the most catastrophic royal television interview in modern history. He claims he effectively ended his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein by 2006. He says he visited Epstein one final time, December 2010, specifically to end the friendship in person, face to face, like a gentleman. The Pizza Express alibi, the inability to sweat, lines that became international punchlines. But here's what nobody laughed about. In 2009, 1 year before Andrew's supposed final farewell to Epstein, Beatrice and Eugenie were flown out by their mother Sarah Ferguson to have lunch with Jeffrey Epstein. They sat across the table from him. They were in the room. And then, 2 years later, they watched their father tell the nation a story that didn't match what they personally experienced. They said nothing. Not a word. Not a correction. Not a whisper to anyone who could have mattered. Eden's charge is not reckless. It's documented. It's specific. And it doesn't go away because a palace press office releases a warm statement about a new baby. Now, to be fair, and fairness matters here, there are real, serious arguments in the sisters' defense. They were young when this began. They didn't choose their father. They didn't choose Jeffrey Epstein. They didn't book the flights to that 2009 lunch. Their mother did. Children raised inside powerful, image-obsessed families learn early that silence is survival. That loyalty is the only currency that keeps you safe. And there's something else. Something in the documents that hasn't been fully explored. Ferguson's emails show what appear to be excuses, given to Epstein, about why the girls couldn't attend things he was requesting. They're skiing. They're abroad. They can't make it. Those excuses might be their mother managing an uncomfortable relationship, keeping Epstein at arm's length without confronting him directly. Or they might be something more significant. Evidence that Beatrice and Eugenie were actively, privately, resisting being pulled deeper into Epstein's world. We don't know. That ambiguity is real, and it matters. But here's where the defense starts to fracture. Because one thing is not ambiguous. Beatrice was present, in meetings, with BBC producers before the Newsnight interview aired. She was involved, by some accounts, in encouraging her father to participate. She knew what he was going to say. She knew, from sitting in that room in 2009, that his account wasn't complete. And she said nothing. At some point, being raised in a difficult family stops being a full explanation. At some point, a choice is still a choice. Here is where this stops being a tabloid story. Thames Valley Police. Active investigation. Misconduct in public office. The allegation at the core of that investigation is not about parties or photographs or embarrassing friendships. It is about confidential government documents. Specifically, whether Prince Andrew, while serving as the United Kingdom's Special Trade Envoy, shared classified government intelligence and commercially sensitive information with Jeffrey Epstein. And critically, whether what Epstein received in exchange for paying off Sarah Ferguson's debts was not just goodwill, but access to state secrets. Let that land. If that allegation is accurate, if Andrew exchanged British government intelligence for Epstein covering Ferguson's debts, then the question of where that intelligence went is no longer a royal scandal. It is a national security crisis. Because Epstein didn't operate in isolation. Investigators across multiple countries believe his network had direct connections to foreign intelligence services. Russia is named in some of those assessments, not as a settled legal fact, but as a serious concern held by serious people inside serious institutions. And Britain and Russia are not currently in a comfortable relationship. This is the context. This is the water temperature. And Beatrice and Eugenie were at the 2009 lunch. The lunch that took place shortly after Epstein's release from prison. The lunch where, according to available evidence, conversations began about Epstein paying off Ferguson's debts. They were in the room. Not on the periphery. Not passing through. In the room. Are they material witnesses? That is not a dramatic question for a YouTube video. That is the exact question investigators would need to answer. And on the available evidence? Almost certainly, yes. They know what was discussed. They know whether debt conversations happened in their presence. They know whether their mother connected those debts to anything Andrew could provide. They know things that a police investigation cannot reconstruct from documents alone. That is what material witness means. And then there's Eugenie's charity work. She has dedicated her public life to fighting modern slavery and exploitation, one of the most serious violations a human being can suffer. Her father is alleged to have had deep connections to a network built on precisely that exploitation. The moral contradiction is not abstract. It is sitting at her dinner table. And if she holds information that could help investigators understand the full reach of what Epstein was doing, the question of whether she cooperates is no longer just about family loyalty. It is a question about what her values actually mean when they cost something. Back to that pregnancy announcement. The palace made a choice. A visible, deliberate, documented choice. They announced it. They put King Charles's name on it. They said he was delighted. That is not nothing. That is the British monarchy, one of the most reputation-sensitive institutions on the planet, publicly placing itself in Eugenie's corner. It is saying, whatever is happening with her father, we have not made the same decision about her. But endorsements have conditions. The Harry situation showed that. The Andrew situation proved it more completely. The monarchy does not extend unconditional cover to people who become institutional problems. When the cost of support outweighs the benefit, the institution recalculates. And if this investigation advances, if the question of testimony becomes unavoidable, the palace will face a moment it cannot soften with a press release. What happens to King Charles's stated delight if it emerges that Beatrice and Eugenie refused to cooperate with a national security investigation? What happens to the endorsement when the institution that issued it is suddenly associated with two women who chose family silence over a serious legal process? That is the trap hidden inside this announcement. The palace's warmth is real, and it is conditional, and the conditions are coming. The baby is due this summer. Christenings follow. Autumn, perhaps. Early the following year. And that christening will tell us more than any press release, any denial, any carefully worded palace statement ever could. Because there is one question it will answer without ambiguity. Will Andrew be there? At Beatrice's daughter Sienna's christening, he was. No cameras. Side entrance. His presence understood rather than photographed. But he was there. Will Eugenie do the same? Reports surfaced late last year suggesting she had stopped speaking to her father. That the anger went beyond ordinary family difficulty. That the specific revelations, what was said about her, what was attempted involving her, had broken something that couldn't be quietly repaired. Those reports were denied. Off the record, from sources described as close to the York family. Of course they were. But the christening will not be deniable. If Andrew walks through that door, even a side door, we will know the bond held. That blood survived the scandal. If he isn't there, at his own daughter's child's christening, we will know something has fundamentally shifted. Something that no statement, no denial, no royal press office can reframe. Watch for the guest list. It will be the most revealing document the House of York produces this year. Zoom out for a moment. Because the risk of this story is that it gets treated as royal gossip, as tabloid entertainment, as a sidebar to real news. It is not. If the core allegation against Andrew is true, if a senior British royal used his government access to funnel intelligence to a man whose network connected to foreign powers, then the investigation currently underway is not about palace drama. It is about what Britain's enemies may have received. It is about which secrets left the room. And the women who were at the table, who heard the conversations that allegedly set all of this in motion, carry knowledge that has consequences beyond their family, beyond their reputation, beyond the question of whether the king is delighted about a new baby. This is real. The stakes are real. The investigation is real. And the pressure on Beatrice and Eugenie quiet, deniable building is very real. Eugenie is expecting her third child. August and Ernest will have a sibling. Jack will hold another baby in his arms. The king will welcome another face into the extended family. Those things are true, and they are good. But the other things are also true. And they don't pause for a pregnancy. The investigation continues. The questions remain. The christening is coming. And the choices that Beatrice and Eugenie make in the months ahead, about what they say to whom and when, will determine whether this moment of palace warmth is the beginning of something real for them, or the last quiet chapter before everything changes. They were in the room. They know what was said. And the question that nobody in the palace, nobody in the press, nobody in this entire story has yet answered, is what they're going to do about it. That question is still open. And the answer, when it comes, will not be quiet. If you think the palace made the right call standing by Eugenie, or if you think the questions being raised deserve real answers, tell me below. The comment section is where this conversation needs to happen.